You're listening to another episode of From the Dust with Sara Decker, a place to explore spiritual experiences and topics. And no, we are never alone. Hello and welcome to From the Dust. I'm your host, Sara Decker, and today I have a new friend here with us, Ed Tuinukuafe. Ed is from Canada and reached out to me. We just met yesterday, but I look forward to our conversation today, as he has a very unique perspective that I'm looking forward to him sharing with you guys today. Thank you so much for being here, Ed.
And it was a cool post, and so I just reached out and cold called, had a conversation, or cold messaged, I guess, had a conversation. So,
well, I appreciate that, and I know that there's a lot of fear for me that I've had to overcome of upsetting people because I could have upset people by doing that, but at the same time, I felt impressed to post and also just to add something positive to a situation. Sometimes, anyways, for those watching, the LDS Church, their president just recently passed away, and so the new president of the church will be Elder Dallin H. Oaks. And so I received a witness from the Lord by the Spirit a couple years ago that he would be the next president of the church, and witnessed to me what would make him a great president of the church in these last days and in this time where there's so much good being called evil and evil being called good, that he was just like the perfect person that God was going to place him in that space. He was already the head of the quorum of the 12, but if he were to pass away, which who knows what's going to happen, so I didn't know if he would still be alive when President Nelson passed away, but when I received that witness, and so I just shared that. I do think that even if we're different religions or we're not in a religion, we can still share love and respect to each other and mourn with those who mourn and comfort those that stand in need of comfort. And I know that I've watched a lot of people be very negative online when they choose to leave a religion. It's like conference weekend seems to bring out the worst in people. I almost feel like there's usually a lot of
right.
negativity, and I actually didn't see that almost at all this time, but I felt like I wanted to post and just share my witness that I had. And because we don't have to be at odds. We really don't. Like, wherever we are in our spiritual journey, we don't have to fight with each other about it. And so,
well, and did you get to watch President Nelson's funeral at all?
no.
Because it was after that we talked yesterday that was his funeral, and anyway, so yeah, it's interesting you say that, though, like interfaith wise, that President Oaks was the last speaker, and that was definitely something that stood out from him speaking, is the importance of interfaith kind of thing, and not because even as a member, I grew up in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and I definitely was more like a Pharisee before, where I used to think that my way was our way in the church was the only way kind of thing to Christ kind of thing. And but I've definitely changed that viewpoint over time now, to where one of my favorite quotes is from Elder Mark E. Peterson, one of the apostles, like from the 80s or so. And he says, all of the truths of eternity are being broadcast by the Holy Ghost throughout all of space kind of thing. And the way that I would interpret that is, therefore, all of humanity and all the different religions is really just a function of everybody just interpreting God's spirit and in different ways, and thus creating religions, a myriad of religions as a result kind of thing. And because if you've been to the temple, or if our highest ceremonies are in the temple, or ordinances are in the temple, and you see mirrors of the temple in all the different religions kind of thing. Like, I've seen so many different like mirrors of that elsewhere kind of thing. And it's amazing, actually, I think.
I agree. I used to, growing up, I felt like the truth was taught with Adam and Eve, and then everything else has been like either a break off where that story's told over generations and maybe little changes happen or something. It's like playing telephone and things shift.
Yeah.
Or um more recently I've almost wondered too if certain religions just focus on an aspect of what they remember from what they've been told. And so they end up we get to where we see these different cultures among different religions, um which some are incredibly beautiful. I know that going to Mexico in March, where I got to participate in some of the Mayan ceremonies there over
Were
the.
you there? So we kind of talked yesterday, and you were saying that you're friends with Chief Mirga, right?
Yeah, yeah, we
Yeah.
were.
Were you there with him for that thing then?
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Well, and
That's
I
cool.
loved it, and I really loved the ceremonies, and I felt the spirit so strong, and it was so beautiful, and it taught me things that I'd never. It's like I saw the gospel principles and what they were doing, but I'd never seen experienced it from that vantage point. It's like
Right.
it made it so much more alive. Some of these things that I've been taught that just seem like these phrases we use that we don't really understand always. I felt them come alive. There was things that were just absolutely beautiful, and
Right.
I
I
I walked
yeah,
away from that with a tremendous amount of respect and feeling like that this would be beautiful to come together, because there was so much we need in our culture. Like we've become, I don't know, I dead in some ways. Like it's very quiet on church on Sunday, or and I don't know
oh,
if you've ever been in those wards where it just feels like people aren't paying attention, no one's singing,
right.
nothing's really happening. And um you're not you don't walk away feeling like you had a spiritual feast that day. And I don't know, I just thought it was so beautiful.
And I know what you mean by that. Like the I think that's just a function of, I don't know. There's a lot of people that, I shouldn't say a lot of people, but there are definitely people, depending on their conversion to the gospel, to the restored gospel, they're just, yeah, there's a lot, there definitely is a lot of people that just go through the motions kind of thing, 100%. But I don't know, like in more recent years, to me, it's almost like I don't understand why people could be going through the motions when the world is just becoming crazier. Like you said earlier, like evil is being called good, good is evil kind of thing now more than ever, right? And um but like yeah, when you say the alive part, what you made me think of was in the church, in the Church of Jesus, like in the restored church, the um there's a definite big emphasis on no percussion type of thing, right? No drums being played as music. And I'm coming as I'm a I play a little bit of music. I grew up playing violin since I was 5 years old, and then I played piano since I was eight too. So I've played a lot of like I've played a lot of music in my time, kind of thing. Like I grew up all playing music, but like yeah, and we talked about yesterday. I've been going to Sundance now, which is the highest ceremony for the around here, the Stony Cree and Blackfoot people. It's kind of the highest ceremony that they have for their people. Which when I was going to it for the first time, my older brother is married to a Plains Cree woman, and my sister-in-law, and he said when I was going to the Sundance, he's like, well, Matt, you going to that is like us going to the temple kind of thing, because that's the highest kind of thing of means of worship kind of thing. But the interesting thing in Sundance, it's all drums, and pretty much all ceremonies for at least those the people I've been around here, um, drum is the musical instrument, and your voice too, because they all sing and pray through singing and drums kind of thing. But yeah, I look at it as it's just a different means of to the same goal is kind of how I look at it. But as I've pondered over it for like 4 or 5 years now, right? Like, because
Yeah.
when I first went in, I was really uncomfortable and totally everything was really really new going into Sundance, and I was really uncomfortable in doing it because I was so fresh. But now after 4 or 5 years, I've been going to the same like First Nation, or I've been doing it with the same Stony Cree people here, and now they're like family to me kind of thing. And even as I like have felt a little bit awkward even this last time, they're like, "Bud, you've been coming here for like you're like family now. You don't have to act like so uncomfortable and nervous as much anymore," kind of thing, right? So
That's interesting. They are I think it's so I don't know how to say this. Like the connection I felt you feel at those ceremonies. I only have my experience with going to Mexico to really go off of. But I came back
right,
from a week there, spending 5 in the morning till, you know, 8 o'clock at night sometimes doing ceremony that I felt a sense of community and connection in that space. That I came home and realized that's what I was missing, that there wasn't like true connection. And I
that there wasn't true connection like elsewhere, you mean? Or
well, so I'll just paint a picture. So in during the ceremony down in Mexico, when they would speak for a while, and then they would play the drums and you would dance. But it wasn't just everyone dancing around doing their own thing. They would have man woman in a circle,
hmm.
and you would dance in circles going man woman, and you would often be holding hands. And I mean, I can't, it's like, ask yourself, when is the last time you just held hands platonically with someone standing next to you and danced and sang?
Well, in the indigenous way around here, they do stuff like that all the time.
Well, but I'm just
Like,
saying, like in my North American like
right.
culture, white culture, that's not something that I did ever. That wasn't something I was doing. And it
Yeah.
wasn't something that I did with my kids because I wasn't raised that way. And I just, even though I'm a hugger, like I love giving people hugs, but to just play music and be together like that, I don't know. It was just that's just one example, but it just seemed like there was so much more connection there and understanding, and it was
Yeah,
just
I think
different.
for when you say all that, it like for me, it's the difference in cultures, right? Like Polynesians were a very loving people, but in some senses, like depending on like for greetings, we're very very familiar when you give a greeting in Polynesian culture. Like in it, like in for the Maori, for example, they do. Have you heard of the hongi before? Where they do nose to nose, like the that's what Maori people do. But for Tongans, what we do is you can kind of go cheek to cheek to say hello. And like every time I've seen my grandmother in Tonga. I have three of my four grandparents are from Tonga, and then one is from Canada. My one grandfather is from Canada, and every time I've seen my grandma from on my dad's mom, she like when she hugs like that. she like really, it's kind of like a smell thing. Like you really smell each other. So in greetings, we're very familiar, but then at least the way that I was raised by my parents, we're very much not public displays of affection people kind of thing. And so yeah, I was, and even saying I love you, my parents said it to me like 5 times my whole life kind of thing. I can count on my hand kind of thing the amount of times they said I love you. But
Yeah.
but but they're more like Tongans will show their love more than say their love kind of thing, right? And so and then so my wife is more like a European 57 like you. And like the way that Polynesians travel, or Tongans anyways, is whenever you go anywhere, you just stay with the Tongan kind of thing. You just go and stay at family's house. So I've stayed at like and met family that's like so distantly related all the time. But my wife and I, we went one time from Edmonton to like Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, and we even went to Spokane where she had an uncle, like her mom's brother, and she didn't want to go and see him because she hadn't seen him in like 10, 15 years, 20 years, whatever it was. And for me as a Tongan, that was like completely against, like, it would be a travesty really for us to go somewhere and you have like a close relative like that to not go and see them kind of thing. So I think when you say all that, it's just a difference in culture. Like we're just more familiar with our extended family and close to our extended family, whereas white people, at least North American white people, often are like, you don't even, I don't know. Just the fact that she would never even go see her own uncle like that was like astounding to me.
Well, but that's what I mean by like connection, because
Yeah,
we're kind of very, I don't want to be a burden on you, out of sight, out of
exactly.
mind. Family doesn't always mean that much to some people. I mean, for me, like
Totally.
if I was visiting and family was nearby, I'd want to see them. But like that's because my family culture, you get together every Sunday and have family dinner. And I just kind of grew up that way even after I got married and I lived near family. You just get together. And
Yeah.
so family means more. But I have siblings that's not how they are at all. So yeah, definitely is a cultural thing. But I think so that brings me to another thing. Just because it's a cultural thing doesn't necessarily mean that it's the best practice for a
No, not at all. I
healthy
agree.
culture, for healthy hearts and healthy connection,
I
right?
agree
Because
100%.
I know a lot of people feel very isolated like islands, no matter, you know, even though you
Well, and
go and see sun people, like people on Sunday. I spent 30 years, 32 years Mormon. I saw people on Sunday and I never saw them again until Sunday.
right.
Like we weren't friends. We weren't actually a community. You know what I'm saying? Like there wasn't
Yeah, yeah,
true
I know what you mean.
connection.
And like, and see, this is where I also am different in that. So I grew up in a small town in northeastern BC. Like we only had 16,000 people in that town. And it was like a town where minus, or it's just a really cold town. Like January, all throughout the winter is like -30, -35 when I grew up. And then January was usually like a solid -40 degrees, like -40 degrees Fahrenheit, because they both meet at minus 40 and -40 Celsius. They both meet up there, Fahrenheit and Celsius kind of thing. So
Interesting.
yeah, it was really really cold growing up there. But in Fort St. John, our branch growing up, we were like a strong community kind of thing. Like we really we were really close, everybody in our branch. And um but I know what you mean though, because I've been to other places in the church like in Vancouver or just in other places, and like yeah, that closeness isn't there as much kind of thing, depending on I guess the area really, but um I don't know.
Well,
I
and it
guess
just so it just makes me it's always made me wonder. So growing up in kind of a more disconnected spaces. I mean, I moved quite a few times over the years, but I can't say I lived anywhere that I really felt like was a strong community like what you're describing. I can't think of ever living somewhere like that in all the times I moved. So for me, I look at we talk about, Zion, or we talk about the millennium or these times of peace, and I'm like, how are we going to get there? Even when you're reading D&C and you're like, hey, they were supposed to have all things in common and they're under condemnation because they didn't live the law of consecration. How do we ever get there? Like our society is so divorced from community,
you know what
and how do
you
we
know what my theory would be is like because so I am in leadership in our church here, like in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And so here's an example. When I was in a bishopric, I had a friend that was passing through the ward. They were going to come and live in the ward, and their parents were in the ward. And the um the question, or when they were passing through, they said, hey, I heard your congregation, I heard your ward is clicky. And I was like, I don't know, I don't even care about clicks. Like that's the thing about me is I hate clicks. I hate when people group up into one group and then they don't want to go out of their group because they're too uncomfortable to go out of their group kind of thing. I think because my parents were immigrants, we've always been uncomfortable kind of thing, right? In coming into North America and like I said, we were welcomed by our branch. And I even said this recently in a testimony that if they wouldn't have welcomed us in, then we probably wouldn't have stayed in the church kind of thing. But they did welcome us in like family. Uh and I guess like to speak like one thing as I've been around, I'm a school teacher of 5 years, and when I started going to Sundance, my very first year going to Sundance, um, I'm pretty good at learning languages, and so, anyways, the very first time I went to Sundance, I started going to help out and stuff like that, and this one guy who technically is younger than me by probably like 10 years, because me and him got along so well and clicked so well just off of one time, he's like, you know what? I'm gonna adopt you as my nephew, kind of thing. And and so ever since then, he's been my uncle, kind of thing. Even though technically he's like 10 years younger than me, but just in their way, I'm his nephew, right? And yeah, like I keep in contact with him. It's hard sometimes with like extended family to like spend a lot of time together per se. But we have spent time outside of the Sundance too. But it's just at the same time, life is busy. But anyways, when I was the way that they do Sundance around here is that it's essentially like a 4 or 5 day celebration kind of thing, or because they're doing it in conjunction with the summer equinox, right? And so it starts on like Wednesday or Thursday. Wednesday they kind of do like a singing, and then Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And because my wife is more Canadian and white, it's really it especially for that first year, it was hard for her to understand why they would want me to be there. Like, because there's people that when they go to it, they commit to being there for that whole weekend. It's like a 4 or 5 day camping trip, and they just stay there at the Sundance and they sing and pray for that whole time, kind of thing. And but because I have a wife and 4 kids, I also have the obligation to try and my phone's at like 10% right now. But I also have the obligation to like try and go back for that, go back and take care of my family at the same time, right? And so the when I was trying to leave the one night, that my uncle, he said to me, "You know what? The word for white person in their language in Cree is munyao." And what it means, what he said to me when I was leaving is like, the meaning of munyao means is they do things another way or a different way, because like, yeah, because their way is just so familial. Like, you can become family like nothing in their culture. And it's the same too, even for us Polynesians. Like I've gone to family reunions, a 7 generation family reunions kind of thing. So I've met family that are, in reality, for a 7 generation reunion, they're not even really that closely related, right? But because you're family, we treat like family kind of thing. So I don't know. I guess
So have
there's
you
a difference.
found, so I'm curious because you're Tongan, but you've been going to these Cree Sundances, at least they're the ones hosting it, it sounds
Yeah,
like.
Stony Cree. Yep.
Stony Cree. Um, how has that edified your spiritual path?
It's it's expanded it's expanded my spirituality. So when I first went in there, there was an elder, the first elder that in so the reason I even went there was because I was a school teacher in this school. So there was like 10 non-indigenous teachers in that school, about say. And the elder, he invited us and he said, "We have uh we'd like to invite you to our ceremony." And then he said, "We have knowledge of the land that you don't have, and we'd like to teach you," kind of thing. Of those 10 of those 10 teachers, how many do you think came?
You?
Just me. I was the only one that was willing, because the thing is, I started going to these, and at first this elder, he didn't really like me, because when I first came in there I was like talking a lot about the church. And the thing is, with First Nations here, especially in Canada, and I think it's the same in the States, with the idea of residential schools, and like all the damage that people did to them, all the essentially white people did to them in the name of religion, in the name of Christ.
Mhm.
Like, they pretty much despise all religions as a result, kind of thing. And understandably so. But
Mhm.
at the same time, they are still spiritual. So yeah, for me, I I went into it with an open mind, and just I even though they were praying differently than I pray growing up, I just, when they were praying in a different language and singing in a different language, I would just pray for what I was praying for my own family, kind of thing. And I was, in particular, I was just praying, yeah, I was praying really for me and my wife, and for our future more than anything else. And um yeah, and I did receive revelation as a result. And like, distinct tender mercies of the Lord, kind of thing, where I knew, in like intangible ways, that the Lord was answering my prayers as to what I was praying for too. So yeah, I totally, and it's just expanded my horizons of spirituality, kind of thing, and also made me a better Latter-day Saint in the same process, kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. Um, I there's something that I thought I should share. It's something that happened this last week. I don't know if I mentioned it to you yesterday, but just for those watching, it was last week or so. David Midiga was in Guatemala, I believe, over the fall equinox, and they were doing ceremonies there. And we got sent a video. The Zioneer team got sent a video of bees just going all around these altars, these Mayan altars.
Yeah.
And he was like, it was incredible. We just got done with the ceremony. I was just given like a blessing and anointed, and then all these bees show up and they're on the altar. And then a couple days later, I see a post from Zion Media. Shane Baldwin has gone to the temple, and when he came out of the temple, there was bees all over the angel Moroni and near the trumpet. And so
Where at which temple?
at the Kansas City, Missouri temple.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Um, and so I got sent this whole thing about it from actually Shane Baldwin about the symbolism of bees. And one of the things that it mentioned was he really felt like maybe it was a call for the covenant children to gather and unite and to come to Zion. He thinks it happened at the Kansas City, Missouri temple to call people to gather in Zion, which LDS, that's, well, Zion is where you are, it's the pure in heart, but also
Right.
initially was, Missouri.
Independence, yeah, yeah.
And yeah, Independence, Missouri. So it's just interesting because he said that, and then that happened in two very different ceremonies. You know,
Yeah.
Shane's at the LDS temple, Midigat is at a Mayan ceremony, sacred ceremony, and bees show up. And if it's covenant people with Shane, then is it not covenant people with David? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And I just feel like I could hear blasphemy yelling from the echoes in my mind right now. I know that's going to upset some people, but I do really think that God wants his people to stop fighting about which hive they're a part of. If they're all his
Right.
bees, if we're all his workforce, we're all part of the
So
body of Christ. Um,
yeah, I totally agree. The w- Something even prior to going to this Sundance, like for the 5 years, so it was like 2022 that I went to the Sundance for the first time. And um but like in the 5-10 years prior to that, what had prepared me towards that was one of my favorite talks by President Benson, Elder Benson at the time. It's called Civic Standards of the Latter Day Saints, something like that. It's like 1971, or it's in the 70s anyways. But he gives a talk about how we should act, the civic, oh, that's what it's called, the Civic Standards of the Latter Day Saints, something like that. But um in that talk, he's talking about how to deal with like the opposition of politics, blah blah blah, like the bipartisan politics that we live in, that kind of world. But one of the big quotes that he quotes from Orson F. Whitney, one of the previous apostles from like Joseph Smith's type time, is he said that God is not using only just one people for the building up of the kingdom of Zion, essentially. He's using many people, and not just in the church, kind of thing. And in the quote by Elder Whitney, it says, sometimes the Lord will place a veil over somebody to stop them from joining the church because they can do more good out of the church than in the church, kind of thing. And then he just says it like, they are not our enemies, but they are our allies in this great work that we're doing, kind of thing. And so, and then when you compare, like, so that's, as we get closer to the second coming, I really do think that there's only going to be like two teams. And it doesn't even matter the faction or church that you're in. there's just going to be good people and evil people, or good and bad kind of thing. And even President Nelson said something similar in that he there's this one video where he says it's called like there is much more to come. And President Nelson even says in that video, it's like a 20-minute video about him going and visiting all the different churches and religions. And in that video, he says, I don't even think God cares how many people join the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Because at the end of the day, we're all on a journey home back to God, kind of thing. So when he said some stuff like that, and yeah, because of all that, now more than ever, like I just view another thing that President Nelson says is like think celestial. The conclusion that I've come to from President Nelson saying that is that I can see celestial people in and out of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Because and an easy barometer for somebody that's celestial is just they volunteer kind of thing, and they sacrifice their life for a good cause kind of thing, and they're just good, right? So yeah, I don't know, that's
Well, I think in the end, I've thought about that too. And my mom, when I was young, said the in the millennium, she's like, it's not like everyone can do the same job. We need everyone to have their part that they play and the work that they do. And so that always helped me not really think of people as all the same, but as complementary to the work of God, whatever part of the
totally.
kingdom they're laboring in. And I think that that is so true. And when if things do really get bad and we can't go to church on Sunday and like worship with our neighbor like we used to, and if we end up having to leave, if there's I mean, people keep talking about a big earthquake in Utah or maybe California or something where
Uh-oh.
a section of society is going to be fall apart.
Oh, my phone's down to like 1%.
Okay. Well, I was just saying, like, if things get hard, who knows what way, um, it'll be more important that we are around good, safe people than which church they attend. So,
Yeah.
so thank you for coming. I know your phone's dying.
Wait.
Where, if people would like to read, oh, I think it just did. So Ed is on Facebook. I'll just pull it up since his phone just died. His name is Edmund Tuinukuafe, which is spelled, it was on the screen there, TU, uh, um, that little mark at the top of the letter. I don't know why I can't think of the right word. Inukuafe. So Tuinukuafe. Um, and one thing I want to say, I know he's not here anymore, and I'm just gonna leave with a message. I have to verify that it's okay that I share with you guys his Facebook. But I am so grateful for the opportunity that we have to experience other cultures and other religions and other ideas and thoughts. First of all, because it's a respectful dialogue, and that is a way that we grow in maturity. But also because when it comes down to it, in heaven, you're going to have people that lived at all times throughout the earth's history. And not all cultures look the same. And they're going to share with you stories about their life and about their experiences. And you're not going to recognize it because it's going to look so different than your own. But that's okay. And the experiences that they had and their relationship with God or not is going to look possibly different, but that doesn't make it wrong. And that we all live together and we will be able to work together the more that we accept each other. Hi.
That
You got it
that
plugged in?
Yeah, the plugin's working now, so
Okay.
um
Well, I was going to ask you if you want to share a way for people to reach out to you if they wanted to.
um yeah, I have my I mean, I'm on Facebook too, but then my I've been trying to I'm on Instagram under at Atolocan, which is ATOLOCAN. Like Atolo is my Tongan name kind of thing. And
Okay.
then um on Instagram, or sorry, on YouTube, it's technically that it's like my so I also as a teacher I lived in Nunavut. The They were only colonized in the 1960s, and I guess I should close the window. But the when I was there, they I got an Inuktitut name when I was there, like in the first week by from an elder, and he called me Takila. So my my YouTube is called Takila, Takila. Oh, sorry, TakilAAQ, and then I just have it as Nuku, Nuku, and then space Tui, which is TU apostrophe I, and kind of it for short it's TNT. But um,
And that's your podcast. Is that the page that
no,
they're
no, yeah, well,
podcast?
that is where I'm gonna try and start posting my own podcast eventually here. Um, but yeah, that I do have a bunch of other videos. Like I said, I'm going towards like being like a grief counselor type of thing. So I've posted some videos from like kind of funerals I've been to and kind of thing. But
So
yeah,
is that the kind of content you'll be doing, like grief content, like
yeah, I think
counseling?
grief and culture. Like, and another thing I would say is like a maybe perhaps another thing is I also love learning languages. So when I was in Nunavut and with being around the Stony Cree that I've taught around over here, in the time that I've like so for example, when I was in Nunavut, there was a teacher in my school. She had been teaching in Nunavut for 30 years kind of thing, and she was just about to retire. She did her whole career there, like 20, 30 years, whatever it was. And in 2 weeks, I knew more of the language than she did. And she told me that too. Um, so in some sense, like I feel like I love learning languages, and so I guess I've learned how to learn languages faster in a sense, kind of thing. So when I was, and the same thing when I was amongst the Stony Cree here, I was like picking up the language a lot faster, kind of thing too. So um, I say all that to say I don't know, linguistically, that's another dream that I have besides the masters in grief counseling. If I could, if at some point in my life I don't have to worry about money anymore, my dream would be to get like a doctorate in linguistics, kind of thing. So I don't know. That's
I think that's awesome. And I love that we're all so different because we need people with different interests to be a well-rounded society. So I think
yeah.
that's
There
really
you go.
awesome. The I have so many questions, but I think we're pretty much out of
Well,
time. Well, because
I
I'm
guess like a
curious,
long
I
study.
having read some of these other records, I've heard that like the Tongan people and some other islanders that are all that they come from the who was it that came up from the Nephites and Lamanites? It was Hagoth. he
Hey,
built
gosh, yeah.
and moved, and that some of those people went out and inhabited the islands. Um,
Right. Yeah, and that's where I think that's the general theory, right? Is at least even in the church, is that Hagoth and his travels were the people that ended up being Polynesians, right? So, um, and I saw like something anthropologically speaking, some anthropological research saying that Chileans are very much related to Polynesian people recently. So, and also my older brother's big into this world as well, and there's research that shows there are Polynesian shells from the Pacific Ocean that were found in like upstate New York or in New York State. So the way I think about the Polynesians is that they were traveling all around the world, visiting everybody, kind of thing. But
well, there's a lot more travel than people realize in these more what we would call ancient cultures now. But it's interesting because there's in Nauvoo, there's a boat that was rebuilt. I'm trying to remember what it's called. It's right on the other side of Nauvoo, across the river. There's a whole they've been building rebuilding this boat that was proof that they were seafarers, because
right,
everyone likes to assume that they just had small like little boats to get them local places, and that they
yeah,
couldn't travel the sea, and that boat just totally blows that theory out of the water. And then you have um I know with Mitiga he talks a lot about the trade route from like the Mayans down in Mexico up through the Gulf of America, or whatever it's called now, up the river. Um, the
right.
Mississippi, I think it's the Mississippi River, that he says that they went up, and that's how they then went up to like even the Great Lakes region, and that's why you have stuff from all over, which seems so far away. And how did it ever get there? Well, it got there by water and by trade, you know.
Well, and even the legends of the Navajo people and the Dene people, like the legends amongst the Inuk people or the Inuit people and the Dene people, like in the far north, like Alaska type north kind of thing, right?
Mhm.
That's where I lived, was in that part of Canada. The legends amongst those people is that like for the Dene people, for example, I I lived amongst the Dene people around Fort Chippewa in northern Alberta, and the legends amongst their people, they just straight up made portals and to travel from one place to another kind of thing. So, and you can say that those are legends and blah blah blah, but you could also argue in the Bible, Jesus Christ. There are instances in the Bible where Jesus Christ just straight up disappeared too, right? And and then in who's to say when fourth Nephi and that time, and for how close they came to God, who's to say that they didn't become as powerful as our Savior and Jesus Christ with regards to being able to travel as he traveled, kind of thing.
Well, he said that they would do even greater things than he had shown them.
Exactly.
And I think that I have learned that to not put God in a box. One thing
Nope.
that Heavenly Mother told me one time is, she said anything that you could envision or imagine, she's like, what can actually be done is so far above what you could ever imagine. She's like, it's going to be pretty awesome. And
Yeah.
and I believe that. I believe that.
Yeah.
And I think that there
I
is.
can assure. I believe that too. And I mean, this is where if we're gonna cut her short for today, the yeah, like in my experience with the ceremony with these people with the indigenous people, like the Stony Cree, I have seen gifts of the spirit that are beyond my imagination. And don't get me wrong, like I said, I think they're all stuff that you can see in the scriptures as well, kind of thing. Like, but
Yeah.
I think the thing is, these people, because they've been close to the creator for so long, they've they've therefore had good powers. And the thing is, I'll say this too. One thing I learned when I was in Nunavut, there's good shamans, there's good medicine men, and there's bad medicine men. Because when I, as another elder told a friend of mine, told me, said, there's people that draw their powers from Jesus. There's medicine men that draw their powers from Jesus Christ, and shamans that draw their powers from good. And then there's medicine men that don't. So,
Well,
and
and
I,
I will say, like, after going to Mexico, I have friends with various spiritual gifts, and one of them, we went to this ceremony and I thought it was great. Like, the Lord gave me very specific instructions, have your mind and heart very open so I can teach you. I had a vision there, and it was a great experience for me. My other friend, he spent the whole time closing what he called portals. He said there was a man who was a maybe dark shaman, a shaman using dark energies to create and open portals to bring in evil, spirits of evil into the space. And he's like, I just spent the whole time shutting them, in Jesus's name. And then, anyway, so my point is like, there are things that are going on around us that it's one of the exciting things, I think, is that if we can start accepting spiritual gifts and being more open-minded, I think that we would find we could be much more effective as a people
yeah,
to fight Satan in some ways. I know that as I've embraced my own spiritual gifts and come to know myself through them, and like my callings from the Lord, it's helped me to feel to know myself more, but to know God more too, and
yeah, 100%.
to understand more of what He's capable of. And one thing I sometimes have what I call heavenly messengers come teach me things. And that's one of my gifts, my spiritual gifts, is to hear. And so I'm sometimes sent people to share a message. And one time I was asking them about, because in some of the scriptures they talk about stones or different things that have power, and they
Yeah,
call them like tools of power or something like that. And we were asking about them, and they said that they utilize things made from the earth and bless them like they were imbued with power by God, and that those were like our computer, our tech. We have
right.
tech that's like
Well,
plastic and whatever, and they had
that's
tech that was from God, that was like set apart for a purpose, you know.
yeah, and I mean, did you get to watch general conferences last weekend at all?
I watched like 6 hours of it. So yeah, most of it.
Did you? I didn't get to watch all of it, but did you get to watch President Holland's talk?
Yeah, I did actually.
Yeah, like, because that's one thing, like, that's like is going with what you're saying. President Holland talked about how Jesus Christ, with one of his miracles, just spit in some dirt and used the dirt to like wipe and make somebody not blind anymore, right?
Hmm.
Yeah, as I've been like continuing to study with my Stony Cree family over here, um, the conclusions that I'm coming to through revelation is that they truly do have, they've been gifted. And I mean, this relates to President Nelson saying that in the future, there really is going to be powers and miracles that are like beyond, like you said, our imagination. And the thing is, and I'll just, the way I look at it is plain and simply, it says in Helaman 12 how God has control over all the elements. And I think that's the reality of the future coming, is that because of the craziness that is also possible with AI and robots, I truly believe that we will have essentially like control of the elements in a sense, really. If I mean, if God, when the world was created, he controlled all the elements to create the world, kind of thing. Who's to say that we wouldn't might have the opportunity to, if it needed, to control the elements as well?
Yeah, yeah. No, I totally get it. It's actually funny because some of my first lessons from the Lord, when I asked to get to know him and he was trying to teach me about his power, and he was teaching me about that, commanding the elements. Um that was one of the early lessons I received, and I'll just testify because I totally know that's true. And why I know it's true is because since moving to Missouri, we've definitely experienced our tornadoes. We've definitely had tornadoes and stuff that we've
Right.
experienced here. And there's been times where I've been woken up in the middle of the night and I'm like, Lord, like, why'd you wake me up? Why am I awake? And the spirit will just say, Sarah, like, raise your arm and command the storm away from your home. And I'm like half awake. Okay. And I just like wake up and command the storm to leave my home, my family, like to leave us alone, to be directed away from our property and us to be
Right.
protected. And that's happened a handful of times. And
And even Christ said, "You're going to do greater things than I've done." And he,
yeah, well, and I don't share
so
that thinking I'm great. It's not me. It's not
yeah,
me. I'm just grateful that, in the Bible it says the word was God. So why do we walk around thinking our words are so lack power? They don't lack
yeah,
power. God the creator used words to command creation. So our words, are we co-creators with God in our reality? Can we be
yeah.
co-creators by commanding things into existence? And I'm not saying controlling and domineering and any of that kind of crap. What
No,
I'm
but it
saying is, like, can we use our words to co-create a better world?
and I mean, to me, that's just in Helaman chapter 10, Nephi is given the sealing power, right? To where he caused a famine to happen by his prayers. And I mean, it says the reason that he's being given the sealing power to do miraculous things like that, the same sealing power that Elijah had in like causing fire to come down too, right? In the miracle in of the priest of Baal. The in Helaman chapter 10, he's given that power because he's God knows that he will not ask anything that's against his will. So everything that he did ask was in his will, kind of thing. So yeah, I agree too. It's totally in conjunction. Words are powerful if we have the faith to say words that are in line with the Lord, kind of thing. And because, like you said, you've been guided by the Spirit to say these things, right? And I've done. I know what you mean by that, but like with regards to priesthood blessings and that kind of thing too. So yeah, the it's pretty exciting times that we live in as we prepare towards the second coming.
It
So
is. Amen. Amen to that. And I feel like there's such a tremendous shift happening in people's spiritual understanding, and there's so many people searching and being taught and being coming to a greater understanding and finding peace and laying down their weapons of war in some ways, you know, like obviously this isn't the whole world, because we see in the worldliness like people that maybe I just feel like there's people fleeing the world to come to Zion, a place without the wars and the contention. And that's happening even just right now mentally, like when people reach out to each other, hey, my soul like sees you, you're a good person. Like, hey, we should
Yeah.
be friends. Let's talk. Because I recognize the heart in you, the spirit in you as good. And um and I don't know, I was told in when I went to Mexico in March, when I came back, it was like now is the time of the gathering. And I think a lot of that is gathering the people of the Lord in heart and trying and building. One of the visions I received was I saw these invisible walls that we build in between us, like whether it's
Yeah.
religion or race or where we live, it doesn't matter, like whatever
Totally.
example you want to use, that we build these invisible walls and they're unimportant, they don't actually exist, and God is preparing to dissolve them. He showed me that his work is right now is dissolving these walls so that we can see we are one people. We are all children of God. We are all
Yeah.
part of his family, and we need to stop seeing each other as other and build and putting these walls between ourselves.
100%. I have a buddy, um and just ever since, and I think a big linchpin or a big tipping point has been this Charlie Kirk murder that just happened, right? I totally consider him to be a martyr of Jesus Christ. And um as a result of that, though, in like the week after that, I had a conversation with a buddy I hadn't talked to in 20 years, at least by voice. And we were talking about, especially with this Charlie Kirk thing, that he was talking about how he wants to write a book. And I was kind of saying the same thing, how I want to write a book about anytime. And the book the title that I had for the book was like Us versus Them. And how anytime that you start saying them, you automatically lose out. And because everything that we all caused Charlie Kirk to die, kind of thing. Like it has, like, as much as there's like evil amongst us, that evil is amongst all of us, not just them. It's us that have caused that, right? In Moses chapter 7, when Enoch is seeing God and God's crying at all the evil in the world, God says they hate their own blood. That's what's happening in the world, is everybody's hating their own blood and contention, blah blah blah, right? Rather than, like you said, why can't we all just get along, no matter our religion or beliefs, kind of thing, and blah blah blah, right?
Yep. Well, and I think it'll
So
take some time. I've had different people share different visions and dreams they've had about these times of struggle before the time of peace that we will
oh
have.
yeah.
And, you know, it's not going to happen overnight in any kind of way. People are still going to see each other as us and them for a while. Um, but I think I really trust that that will dissolve and that will continue to get a less and less obvious separation, and people will begin to see each other as brothers and sisters. And I think even talking to the I don't know what they call themselves, the Rainbow Council, the of Ablia Yela, which is like Turtle Island. Um, anyways,
Where are they based out of?
The Eagle Condor Colibri and Quetzal Council. They're focused on unity, and they told me that the creator put on their heart to unify the indigenous people.
Yeah.
and that they've been doing this for like 20 years. They've been working toward this unity. But one thing that they mentioned was, like when we started this, we thought this was indigenous unity. And more now, what the creator is telling us is that we are all family. And
Totally.
it's not just about the indigenous people being unified. It's about all of the people of the earth being unified because
Well,
we are all family.
maybe here's a good thought since you just said that amongst the Stony people, the Nakota Sioux are connected all the way to South Dakota, right? Like the Lakota, Dakota, Nakota, and Stony people, they're all the same people kind of thing. They're all connected.
Okay.
And so I was in a ceremony with them, like a different ceremony than the Sundance, another one called like the night ceremony. And one of my good buddies who's become my brother, um, Jonah, he said after the ceremony, he said at the very end of the ceremony, Ed, they said a phrase in Lakota. I think it would have been in Lakota or Dakota, anyways. But the phrase was "mitakuye usin," or that's at least that's how I pronounce it, anyways. But what it means is we are all related, and that's the most important thing. And the thing is, for these people, the Stony Creek people, when they say we are all related, we're also talking about rocks and all of God's creations, because the in the Stony language, the word for rock is matashin, and the word for a willow tree is makushin, which is like grandfather and grandmother kind of thing. So
Mm.
like they really do consider all of creation as God's family, as the creators, that we're all a part of the same family. All of everything is family kind of thing. So
Yeah. And I'm trying to remember the group that I went to a teaching camp with because they say I think it's Watakweyase, but it means all my relations, I believe.
yeah, so that's similar. I would even say that's probably dialect of the same language, really, or Cree, because Cree
Um,
has a similar phrase too.
yeah, and it's and they explain that they were talking to all of the creations of the earth, plants and animals, um and I think that's one of the things that I think is beautiful. I mean, I never mind. I won't get off on another tangent, but that's a whole different conversation. We won't go there.
Yeah, well,
I
yeah,
appreciate your conversation and you reaching out to
yeah,
me.
it's awesome.
I'm grateful. I feel like the more that people are just willing to kind of get out of their box and start just talking to people and welcoming people's thoughts instead of being so rigid in their, I mean, I as long as the conversation is respectful and isn't an argument. I mean, I don't want to argue with anyone. That's not what I'm doing.
Yeah,
But I love to have conversations that open my mind to different things and to see other people's point of view and then to take that home in my heart and say, what can I learn to be a better me from this? Like, how can I
yeah,
apply this to my cosmovision as as
yeah. We can build on. I think with anybody, you can build on common beliefs. Even somebody that you would consider your enemy, you should be able to still find something that's a commonality between even enemies, really, right? Like, I think that's the hard part in our day is like that everybody's our enemy when in reality it's not. Even none of our brothers and sisters are our enemies. It's more the evil that's, well, Satan's the real enemy kind of thing, right?
well,
So
and that's really what I was shown was that if we work through our trauma, it's like it's baggage. It's this weight that we interact in life because of our with like glasses on that are filtered through our trauma lens, you
Yeah.
know. And if we can heal that, which I think connection does, because a lot of times this disconnect and the lack of the ability to converse and to feel heard and understood and also understand others and to hear them, like that's what makes this great motion of energy and connection. Anyways, I just feel like if we can do this and to see each other and hear each other, that as we're able to heal, it's like we can then look at the world through unfettered lenses.
Yeah,
Anyway,
totally.
if we can shed the burdens of our trauma and all of that other stuff because we've worked through these things and we've healed, and we can do that together, there's that we're going to be able to live in a way that is more peaceful and is more this Zion that everyone talks about, because we won't be functioning based off our trauma and instead by our authentic selves. Because I think authentically people are good because our spirits are good, because we are created by a personage of love. And
Yeah.
so, anyways, that's kind of off topic maybe a little bit, but I do think that it makes a big difference when we're able to converse and talk and connect and to hear each other out.
The future is bright. And like President Monson said, the future is as bright as your faith. And I think, yeah, I agree with you that as we share our faith with each other, we're all blessed by it, right? Like you're blessed, I'm blessed. I love having these kind of conversations all the time.
Well, and I think that the desire to control each other's thoughts and opinions and vision of the world and their understanding of creation or of God or of life after death or whatever it is, when we come back and we try to prove how we're right, that is in its own way a form of control, and like
Right.
an act of aggression. And I don't think people really see it that way, because there's a difference between testifying of things we know to be true and trying to control other people's thoughts and behaviors, which is aggressive. Do you see what I'm saying? Like the difference
Yeah.
there. And so I just think if there was more ability to have conversation. You talked about Charlie Kirk, and I think that was his goal, to have
Yeah, totally.
non-aggressive conversation. And I think it's a
100%.
really important goal for all of us that we should have, because I need to be able to have a conversation with someone I seriously disagree with, but like not get violent. You know what I mean? And to not let it entice us to anger. And
Yeah.
that's like a lifelong that's a
Takes
lifelong
practice.
struggle. Yeah, it takes practice, but I think it's a worthy goal. I think it's a worthy goal.
I've like a theory that I've had, like with regards to the book of Revelation, more and more I'm coming to I've said this as a theory. This is my theory, is that more and more I'm thinking that the mark of the beast is really just hate or contention kind of thing.
Mhm.
Because and the thing is, you can be contentious whether you have the full truth or not. It doesn't matter, because you just won't accept other people's ideas because yours is the only right idea, right? Whereas God, he lets us learn at our own pace, kind of thing. Like he let Adam and Eve learn at their own pace and leave the garden to do so.
Yeah,
So
well, and that's the thing, is he's supporting us in our spiritual growth. And so
exactly.
whatever that looks like for us, he's going to support us and he's not going to control us. I remember one time when I was still active LDS, a friend of mine had said, I went to the temple and I asked God if I could leave the church, and he told me it was okay. So that's why I'm leaving the church. And everyone was like, that was Satan, make sure, just condemning her for it.
Well,
And
and
let me finish. So then I was
yeah,
um thinking, well, because I don't think it's ever okay to just dismiss someone's revelation. I just think that's all kinds of
right.
terrible. And so I went home and said, okay, God, why did you really tell her it was okay for her to leave? And he's like, yeah. Like, I don't get it. I don't understand. Why would you say that? And he's like, Sara, why would I tell her that she cannot? Why would I tell her she cannot? I do not control her. That would be controlling, and I'm not going to control her.
And that's Satan's plan.
Hmm. Yeah.
So
And he's like, because people can do what they want. And, and he does that because of love. And he's going to try to support us in our agency, or leave us alone, because we can choose that with our agency too. You know what I
yeah.
mean? At least I think so. So anyways, it's just interesting, and I think people will find their way. You know, I really have learned to trust that people will find their way to wherever it is they really want to go.
I
And
think
we need to trust people and trust the Lord more with people, because
well, and just like it says in the Pearl of Great Price, that's one of the purpose. Like, I mean, Second Nephi says our purpose in life is to find joy, right? Adam felt that men might be in manner that they might have joy. That's why we're here on earth, is to find joy. But then in the Pearl of Great Price, it says, um, he gave us the good and the bad so that we could prize the good and leave alone the bad, something like that, whatever, just paraphrasing. But that's really what, and he gives us the opportunity to experiment in that in life, right? We get to choose what we feel is good fruit, but you learn over time if it really is good fruit or not, or if it's bad fruit that turns bitter over time and gives you happiness. So you're right. We all have our freedom to choose, and to me, that's what the battle really is about.
yeah,
So
it is. But then you come back to what is the first great commandment: love the Lord thy God with all your heart, might, mind, and strength. And then the second is like unto it, to love your neighbor as yourself. And I think that sometimes people focus so much on what they consider the battle that they spend their time being keyboard warriors,
yeah.
and having arguments online.
Rather than just being peacemakers, like President Nelson has asked. And the big thing, yeah, like with all the Charlie Kirk and like the vitriol that was happening like that week after, and still now, I've uh I've truly come to the point where I'm trying to follow President Nelson when he says our goal is to be peacemakers and to build bridges of cooperation and collaboration and peace, rather than, and bridges of understanding, rather than walls of segregation and war and hate, kind of thing, right? Because as soon as you start doing that, then like you said, we've already talked about that, like then you're just creating boxes that are invisible for no reason, kind of thing, or bubbles of segregation. So that's not what God wants us to do. So
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Ed, for being with me today and having this great conversation. It was fun to get to know you a bit. I think your video just paused, or maybe your phone died again. Um, Anyways, thank you. And I look forward to having a conversation sometime soon. Thank you for being here. And don't forget to subscribe. God bless.